Hello, Cougars, and welcome to Get Ready for Room Selection. My name is Megan Rowe, and I'm the Director of Campus Housing. Joining me off camera are staff members from Campus Housing who are here to help answer some of your questions in the sidebar if we don't get to them live. During the presentation portion of this event, I'll show you how room selection works using the My Housing and Dining portal. I'll also share some reminders for what to discuss with your roommates before you select your space. We'll do a Q&A at the end for specific questions that you might have. If we don't get to all of your questions during the live event, please email or call Campus Housing with your questions. I'll put up our contact information on the next slide. One last bit of housekeeping is specifically for our Bridge students and our Honors ELLC students. If you're in either one of these programs, you will be assigned a room and you do not go through the room selection process. You are, of course, welcome to stick around for the presentation if you choose. With that, I'll keep things moving. Here are a few ways you can find out more about Campus Housing. We encourage you to visit our website for routine information like deadlines, processes, and detailed information about the amenities available in each residence hall. You may also email us at housing@cofc.edu or call us at 843-953-2015 if you have any questions. First, let's go over some important dates. As you may know, room selection will take place starting in June. Honor students who wish to live in Barre will have the opportunity to select on June 2nd. Please note that if you are an honor student in a roommate group with non-honor students, you will select on June 3rd if you wish to live in Barre. If you're in honors and you wish to live in another residence hall, or if you don't select in Barre on June 2nd or 3rd, you will have new room selection date and time assigned to you based on when you or your roommate group members completed the housing application. June 7th through the 15th is when incoming students will select rooms based on assigned start times. Your assigned date and time for room selection will be viewable in the My Housing and Dining portal beginning May 31st. And we will also send an email with instructions. Generally speaking, the start times for room selection will be between 9:30 a.m. and 3:30 p.m. But once room selection opens up to you, you can select a space 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Please make sure to sign up for your rooms by June 15th at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you do not sign up by this date, you will be placed at the end of the wait list and we will not be able to guarantee you housing. August 16th is the deadline for making any changes to your meal plan within the My Housing and Dining portal. After that, you can still make changes until August 29th, but you will need to do so through Campus Services HQ. Finally, some dates we're all excited about, and that is move-in. Move-in for fall 2022 will take place Friday, August 19th through Sunday, August 21st. Move-in dates vary by residence hall and are by appointment only. Details related to the move-in process, how to sign up, where to get keys, where to park, are all typically provided in July. Please refer to the What to Bring to Campus page on the Campus Housing site if you want to start planning ahead. All right, so let's get started with room selection in the My Housing and Dining portal. Your specific date and time for room selection will be based on when you submitted your completed housing application. If you are in a roommate group, your date and time will be based on the earliest completed application date in your group. You will receive an email from Campus Housing no later than May 31st with detailed instructions on how to select a room. Students in a roommate group will all be assigned the same date and time, and the group leader will select the building and rooms. Since you've applied for Campus Housing, you should be familiar with the My Housing and Dining portal. To get to room selection, you'll need to log into the portal, click on the Apply for Housing and Meal Plan button, and then continue with this year's housing application. As I mentioned earlier, Campus Housing will email you with information about your date and time for room selection. Once your selection time opens up, you will be able to see a new page titled Room Selection. Once you click on the room selection page, you'll see the building selection section. This includes some reminders from your housing contract, mainly dates of stay and a reminder that the listed rates are for the 21-22 academic year. Our rates are set each year in June by the College of Charleston Board of Trustees. More relevant for the room selection process, though, is our room definitions, which you can also find on the Campus Housing website on the Residence Halls page. Just a quick note on private rooms. which are among the room definitions, and those are very limited. These rooms will not be available to students in a formed roommate group. Students in roommate groups will only be able to select into bedrooms that hold 2 people, which are a double, or 3 people, which are a triple. You will also not be able to join a roommate group if you are unable to select a private room during room selection. This is just a sample page, so don't worry. You'll see all of the halls available to you at the time of your room selection. Once you find the hall that you'd like to live in, click Select. Next, you'll select the room you'd like. These images are room cards. The room card shows the number of spaces available, room type, and your cost per semester. Each circle represents a room in the suite. The blue outline circle shows how many beds are in the room you're viewing. So for this example, there are 3 rooms in the suite. Each is a double room, which means students share the room with one other person, and the cost is $3,400 per semester for each student. 2 other things you might see on a room card is a label with RA Suite or a paw print next to the room name. RA Suite label means that an RA will live in the suite. It does not mean that you will be an RA. The paw print indicates that the room is an approved animal room and that someone in the suite has been approved to have an animal. If you have any animal aversions or allergies, you might not want to select this space. Click Show Room Info for more information about the room, including floor plans. Use the left-hand column to filter rooms you see on the right. If you click on Show Room Info, you'll be able to see who is already occupying a space, if anyone, and their contact information. You'll also be able to review the specific floor plan for the room and suite. Once you've taken a closer look, click Go Back to return to the selection page if you found what you want, and then click Add to Cart. This is an important detail, especially when we're all used to things like our Amazon shopping carts keeping things forever. Once you click on Add to Cart for your room, you will have 5 minutes to complete your selection. So especially for roommate groups and group leaders, know that you'll need to select or assign beds within this time and then confirm your room selection. If you are a group leader, this is not the time to start texting your future roommates to try to make sure that they're happy with your selection. Please go ahead and have them online if you need to so that you don't run out of time. If it takes you longer than 5 minutes, your cart expires. You will need to start over with room selection. As I mentioned in the last slide, the next step is to select your bed. And if you are in a roommate group, you'll also assign your roommates' beds. If it's just you selecting for yourself, it's pretty straightforward. You click Select Bed to see a drop-down menu with available options. Select the one you want, and then click Assign Beds. If you are the group leader for a roommate group, you'll need to assign your roommates' beds before clicking Assign Beds. Next, you'll see the confirmation page with the hall, rooms, and beds you've selected or assigned to your roommates. If everything looks good, click Confirm Room Selections. If you need to make changes, click Go Back. Once you click Confirm Room Selections, you are done with room selection. You will be taken to the application status page. So if you changed your mind, no worries. Once you've selected the space, from the application status page, click the Change Room button. From there, you'll be able to go through the same steps as before, but the page names will be slightly different. Room Change Building Selection, Room Change Room List, and Room Change Assign Beds. The confirmation screen will show you your previously selected room and your new room. Click Confirm Room Change, and you're all set. So it's important for you to think about which amenities are important to you. Do you want to be close to a particular dining location? Do you want a full kitchen in your suite? Do you want to share a room or suite with just one other person or have multiple suite mates? Our website contains detailed information about each hall and its amenities. Go to housing.cofc.edu and then to the residence hall selection to look through your options. Make an ordered list starting with your top residence hall to your least desired one. Feel free to make a list of your preferred setups as well. Our email dated May 18th included a list of all suite and room types within each hall to give you a sense of what we offer. We will send that again with your room selection date and time. Talk to your family about your housing budget and then make sure roommates, if applicable, are all aware of each other's budgets. Once we send you your starting room selection time, check that your group leader is available to select your rooms at that time. If you learn that your group leader will not be available at that time and you want to select as soon as you can, you may change who your group leader is. To do so, please email us at housing@cofc.edu no later than June 1, and we'll take care of your request. I mentioned the list of all suite room types that we emailed you previously, and we definitely want you to be familiar with the spaces available to first-year students. Remember that different roommate group sizes will have different halls available to them based on the suite types in the hall, and of course, what's available at the time of your specific room selection. Now I'd like to open up the question and answer portion. We will be reading off questions and we will get to as many as possible. If your question is not answered here, please know that you can always email or call us with your questions. And now I'll hand it over to LaToya so she can read the questions.
All right, question number 1. Are the residence halls with less availability typically non-freshman dorms based on the sheet that was sent out in the email?
So if I'm hearing your question correctly, you're asking which buildings are typically not available to students?
I believe on the sheet, when we list the room numbers, they're referring to some of them with low numbers versus high numbers. So like Bay 99, but Views has 6 in the triple rooms.
Gotcha. Okay. So what I would suggest is, as we talked about, making sure that you're making a list from your top choices all the way down to the least desirable choices. And that way, regardless of when you're going to be able to select for room selection, you'll have a kind of ordered list. Obviously, we do have some buildings that are going to be smaller. So buildings like Buste that don't hold a ton of students are going to have less availability than a building like Berry, where you're going to have a lot more students and a lot more availability in there. You can also, within the residence halls section on our website, you can get a sense of how many total beds there are in a building, and that might give you a good sense of our larger buildings versus some of our smaller buildings. Because we're also changing the occupancy for some of our buildings this year, buildings like 1 Warren and 20 Warren that typically are actually for returning students, and this year are going to be for first-year students, you are going to see additional beds in those spaces, and those would have all been designated on that sheet.
Great, next question. When will we be billed for our dorm room? Will we be billed and have to pay up front at the start or end of a semester, or is this a thing we don't pay for until we graduate?
Excellent, good question. So your housing charge will go on your account as long as you're obviously participating in the room selection process and doing everything on time. It will be placed on your account in the beginning of July. And so normally bills are sent out, I believe, mid to late July. And so your housing is going to be on there. Students pay for their housing by semester, and that charge is due before the semester begins. So the treasurer's office is the one that puts together that billing information, and in the bill, it will have your due dates. It will also have opportunities for you if you need to do something like setting up a payment plan. All of that information goes through the treasurer's office, but bills are due before the semester begins, and you would only be billed for that. So your first bill is going to just have fall, and then you would get another bill in the spring that is going to be for your spring housing.
Thank you. Next question. I'm still confused as to how roommate groups work. Do we need to be a part of one? And if not, are we assigned a roommate?
Sure. So roommate groups, the selection process and the opportunity to be in a roommate group, if you are not already in one, that process has now passed. So everybody that had signed up during the regular process for room selection, we have messaged everyone out, letting them know if they're in a roommate group and if that, if the roommate group is confirmed. So if you're not in a roommate group, that's totally fine. You're going to select into housing by yourself. So you're going to go in and you are going to select as an individual. So LaToya, let's say that neither of us had a roommate. and I decided I was going to select into Buste 203. And so I go in, and when I go in, no one else has selected that space. So I select that space, and then you're selecting after me, and you look and you see, okay, there's one person in that space. You're going to be able to see who I am. You're going to be able to read about me, and then you're going to be able to select that space specifically. So I'm going to select my own space because I'm by myself, and you're going to select your own space because you're by yourself, but we're going to then be roommates together. So if you haven't formed a roommate group, unfortunately that time has passed. But if you are in a roommate group, then again, the group leader will be the one that's selecting for everyone. So in the case that you and I had made a roommate group already, and you were the group leader, I would not be going in and participating in room selection because you would be selecting for us. You would be selecting your bed space, and then you'd be selecting my bed space at the same exact time.
Thank you. How do we contact future roommates?
Good question. So if you've made a roommate group, then you already have a way to contact them. If not, then in the My Housing and Dining portal, when you select a space and you get to that application status page, which is the page after you have completed the room selection, you'll be able to then see that floor plan. So that floor plan of the room that you looked at when you were in the midst of selection, you'll be able to see that floor plan, and you'll also be able to see any assigned roommates in there. So let's go back to the example of you and I that are going to be future roommates, but we didn't form a roommate group. So when I go in and select, when I get to that application status page, then I am not going to see anybody listed there. But as soon as you then select into that, then I'm going to be able to see your name, and you are going to obviously be able to see my name as well. So for anyone that's selecting as an individual, or if you are in, say, a roommate group of 2, but you're selecting into a suite that may hold, let's say, 4 people. So you're going to have 2 suite mates. You're going to be able to go back into that application status page at any time, either during room selection or once room selection has been completed, to be able to see those roommates and then be able to contact them from directly from there. You can message them, or a lot of students end up putting their contact information in that profile section that each student wrote about themselves during the original application process.
Okay, next question. Does it matter who in the group does the room selection? Should it be the person with the best number based on the date they submitted their application?
That's a really good question. So for roommate group leaders, it doesn't matter who in the group is the leader. I would encourage that whoever is that roommate group leader now, making sure that everyone in the group is comfortable with that person making decisions for them, since they're going to be deciding the building and the room and who are roommates together. So it's good to have those conversations early, but we also want to make sure that that person is someone that's going to be responsible, not someone that's going to take a nap, let's say, and fall asleep during that room selection time. We want to make sure that there's someone that's going to be able to make those decisions in a quick manner, since you only have 5 minutes once you've selected that initial space to make the bed assignments. But it doesn't matter. So it doesn't matter if the person that has the person that applied earliest is the group leader or not. Everybody is going to benefit from whoever that first person was. It doesn't necessarily have to be that person that is the group leader.
Thank you. If your group has an odd number of people, will you be assigned a random roommate?
Good question. So we do have a couple of folks that still are in an odd numbered group. And we will be messaging those students specifically. There are not many of those at this point. However, we don't want to have to break up roommate groups, so we will be messaging out to students. But what I can tell you is that everyone is going to be, obviously, if you're in a double or triple room, you're going to be getting a roommate. So it's not as if you're in a roommate group of 3 that you would not and you're selecting into a suite for 4 people, that other bed would not be occupied. It's likely that what we would do is that other bed would be filled by someone that doesn't have a roommate. So they're kind of selecting on their own, and they would kind of fill in that last bed. But we will be communicating directly with any groups that are incomplete to make sure that they understand that, and to make sure that there wasn't anybody that was left out of their roommate group unintentionally.
I am in the Honors College. Do I have to do anything specific to get into the Honors College residence hall?
Great question. So we did go over some honors information early on, but I know it was right when we started. And so I know we did have some folks that joined us a little bit later. So for honor students are going to be selecting, have the opportunity to select early and get into honors housing in Berry. So if you are an honor student and wish to live in the honors portion of Berry, you are going to be selecting on June 2nd. Now, if you are an honor student that maybe is in a roommate group with non-honor students, you all would be selecting on June 3rd. If you're an honor student that doesn't wish to live in Berry, that's fine. Your initial room selection time is going to be on the 2nd or the 3rd, depending on if you're in a roommate group with non-honor students or not. And so if you decide we don't want to live in Berry, or I don't want to live in Berry, that's fine. You'll be reassigned a room selection time automatically after June 3rd. And that would be the same exact roommate time, the room time that you would have gotten anyway. So we essentially assign everybody a roommate time initially, a room selection time, and then we go through and pull the honor students and assign them the earlier time. So if you don't, then you're just going to basically default back to whatever your original time would have been. So you will still need to participate in room selection if you're an honor student. However, if you're in the honors ELLC program, you will not participate in room selection. Since you have to live in a specific portion of the building, we just go ahead and assign you into a specific space. And if you have questions about that, please feel free to email us. But we'll also be sending out specific information to honor students, again, to make sure that you have everything that you'll need for room selection.
When and how do we select move-in dates and times?
Great question. So move-in is by appointment only. And so what that means is this is how, if you've been on campus, which we hope you have been, you may have noticed that being on a peninsula, we have very limited parking and we have pretty small sidewalks. And so something like move-in is obviously a really big endeavor for campus. So the way that we help to make sure that your move-in experience is a great one is that we have appointments. So we stagger the time that students arrive on campus to make sure that everybody is able to move in, hopefully very smoothly. So what will happen is that after room selection, likely in early July, we will release information about how to select a time for move-in. So what you'll be doing is you'll be going back into the My Housing and Dining portal, just as you do for anything related to housing, and you'll be selecting a specific date and time for move-in. And we'll send out some more information about what that's going to look like. But I do encourage folks that are trying to if you're trying to make plans early now for the fall, to not automatically assume that everyone is going to be able to move in on, say, the very first day of move-in, which is the 19th. We want you to wait until you're able to get that appointment and confirm it. If you're not able to and you want to make those travel plans, that's fine. Just please understand that we're not going to be able to change your move-in time just because you made a flight arrangement or travel arrangements before you were able to select a time. So if you can wait, we really encourage you to. And if you can't wait, then we do encourage you to be flexible and make sure that if you're getting something like a hotel or something like that for the night before, that you're making sure that you're extending that time out in case you're not able to get in on the first date that you may want.
Thank you. If we have a 4-person group, will we get combined with another group if we end up in a larger room?
Good question. So let's say that you're going to be selecting into a building like 10 Warren. So many of the 10 Warren suites hold 8 students. And so what we do in preparation for room selection is we obviously know the number of groups of 4, as well as the number of groups of 6 and the number of groups of 2. And so what we do is we designate suites or spaces within each building for that number of people in a group. So in that situation where you had a room that would hold 4 people, or sorry, a room that would hold 8 people, and you're in a roommate group of 4, it may be that we wouldn't combine 2 groups together so that you would be selecting at the same time. But what we would do is we would essentially make it so that the 4 of you would select into 4 beds, and then the other 4 people would select into the other 4 beds. So 2 group leaders essentially would be selecting into the same suite, but they would be selecting at their own individual time. So again, the group leader will be able to see when they're going in to select that there are 4 other people in there. They'll be able to read over profiles of those students and be able to select that space. So we wouldn't be combining the groups necessarily before room selection, but what we would be doing is that you'd be able to both select into the suite as a group of 4.
How do I know if my roommate group was verified before May 22nd? And does this affect my ability to do room selection?
Good question. So we actually went through and looked at groups that maybe did not get verified before the due date, and we've gone ahead and verified your group. So don't worry about that. If you got that email that said your group wasn't verified and we asked you to verify it by a specific time, it's okay if you didn't. We've gone ahead and verified that group for you, so you should be all set.
Is there an all freshman residence hall? And how do you know if the bathroom facilities are cleaned by university staff or it is our responsibility?
Great question. So the residence hall page that we have referred to is a really good place for you all to look. So on that residence hall page, what it does is it's going to have a page for each individual hall. Each individual building. So you'll be able to click on that and you'll be able to read about the building. So there's a paragraph at the top that kind of generally talks about the building, and it talks about the setup of the spaces. And then down below, it's going to show things like sample floor plans of the space. And then it's also going to show a listing of amenities or things that are in there. So it will show you what, and many of those are hyperlinked. So if it says that there's a lofted bed, you'll be able to click on where it says lofted bed, and you'll be able to then see a picture of what a bed in that space specifically looks like, to give you a really good sense of what you're going to be seeing when you go to move into that space. So it's really important for you to be talking through with your roommates and making sure that everybody is kind of on the same page with those decisions. And certainly if you have any questions about that, please feel free to reach out to our office.
I have my suite mates in my roommate group within the portal, so a total of 4 of us. When choosing rooms, do we consider them in our room selection or just our room?
Good question. So as a formed roommate group, all of you, the group leader is going to be selecting for everyone. So it's not just your direct roommate, but it's also the suite mates. So if you're in a roommate group of 4, and let's say I'm in a roommate group of 4 and I'm the group leader, I'm going to be selecting my bed space. I'm going to be selecting my direct roommate's bed space, as well as my 2 suite mates spaces. So that's how that kind of process works, is that, again, I would be selecting everyone's space, not just my direct roommate. So I'll be selecting the building that we're in, the specific suite that we're in, as well as who it is that's going to be sharing each of the bedrooms. So me and my roommate in one room, and then, you know, our 2 suite mates in the other space.
If we have a roommate group of 4, but think we might be assigned a time towards the end of room selection, are we still guaranteed a suite with 4 people, or is there a chance we would have to split up or end up in a group of 6 or 8?
Good question. So you might definitely end up in a room for 6 or 8. You're not going to be in a group for 6 or 8 because, again, we're not going to be combining groups, but you may end up selecting into a suite that holds 6 or 8 people. That's always an option regardless of when you select housing. We have a lot of suites that actually hold 8. And at this point, we actually don't have any groups, full groups of 8 folks. And so it does end up being a lot of roommate groups of 4, like 2 roommate groups of 4 that would be in a suite. So in those situations, though, once you're in that roommate group, we're going to ensure that you are able to select a room for all 4 of you. If for any reason there's something, you know, went awry and that wasn't a possibility, we would contact you prior to room selection. But it's very likely that you'll be able to select into that space for all 4 of you together. And again, you might be with another group that's in there. But we would certainly contact you if we ever needed to do anything with your specific with your group. But the way that everything is planned out at this point, everyone will be able to select within the group that they have assigned already.
Do private rooms still have suite mates?
Good question. Yes. So everybody that lives on campus is going to be sharing some kind of space with others. So if you're thinking about a space that, you know, if you're looking at something like Rutledge, because Rutledge has private rooms, you're going to be sharing the suite with others. So you might have a private bedroom that only you are in, but you're definitely going to have other suite mates. Everybody shares something with other students, whether that's you're sharing a bedroom and the rest of the suite, or whether that's you're sharing just the rest of the suite that might be there. So in the case of Rutledge, you'd be sharing the kitchen, living room, and bathrooms with other students. I know before you also had talked about the question about kind of how do we find out what if there's a building where there's a community bathroom and things like that. Again, looking at that residence hall page is a good way to do that, but we only have one building on campus that has traditional community bathrooms where you kind of leave your room, go down to the hall, and there are multiple things like showers and toilets and things like that. That's Buste Residence Hall. It's available for females. And I do encourage folks to look at the website and read about that. I think a lot of people, when they think about something like that, they're turned off by it. But what we find from students that live there is that it's a much different experience than they imagine. So it's not like what you may have seen in the movies where there's just a big room with a bunch of shower heads and it doesn't provide a lot of privacy. All of the showers are private. So there's an area for you to step in and change and then step into the shower so that all of that is private. You're not going to be in a big open room where everyone's going to be able to see everything. So I do encourage folks to take a look at the website so you can understand what those look like better.
What furniture is provided in the residence halls?
Great question. So depending on what space you live in is going to be dependent on what furniture is there. But every single bedroom obviously has a bed, a desk, drawer space, and hanging space for students. So again, back to that residence halls page, when you go to that residence halls page, there'll be that list of items at the bottom, and you'll be able to not only see that obviously everyone's going to get a bed, but you'll be able to see specifically what the bed in that space might look like. So it might say that a bed is semi-lofted, right? So knowing what a semi-lofted bed versus a lofted bed might look like, you'll be able to see that specifically. So I definitely encourage roommate groups to get together to look at those pages so that as you're making that list of your most desired space to least desired space, you're also looking at what that furniture might look like. I know we also tend to get a lot of questions when people are looking at spaces that have, let's say, a lofted bed about if they can move the bed, if those beds can be adjusted. And so we don't adjust beds unless there's obviously a medical need that would need to happen. And that process goes through our disability services office. So we don't move those beds. Technically, the beds can be moved. However, we do not encourage students to do that. We've actually had students that have gotten injured by doing that themselves. And so look at that, but also know that if ever there is a bed that's lofted, there's always going to be a safety roll bar installed on that bed. So there would be no chance for a student to roll off and fall out of their bed.
Thank you. Are most residence halls co-ed by floor or by building?
Good question. Most of them are co-ed by suite, actually. So if you're looking at a building like 10 Warren, it's not, we don't take one floor and say this floor is for females, the next floor is for males. What we do is we basically do it by the suite. So 101 might be female, 102 might be male, it might also be female, and then 103 might be male. So we try to, in any building that has, that is not just a single sex building, we do try to make sure that everyone is kind of spread out around the building so that there isn't an entire floor of one gender.
Great. When we are selecting a room, we hit the room info. Can we see where the room is in the building, or are we just given room number?
Good question. So unfortunately, you'll only be able to see the room number. And the reason we do that is actually for safety. A lot of students will ask and say, can we see a building floor plan for the entire building? And again, we don't do that because of safety, because we don't want to be able to provide essentially a roadmap within the building to someone that might not, someone that shouldn't get it. And so it does only show that if there's a specific reason why you're looking for something. So let's say that you may have a mobility issue and you're looking to make sure that you're close to a stairwell or you're close to an elevator. You're welcome to give our office a call and we can help you talk through some of those and where in the building you might be looking to say, okay, in this specific building, the rooms that end in 03 are going to be the ones that are closest to the elevator, as an example. So we're happy to do that, but we don't provide full building floor plans within the room selection process.
If you do not have suite mates in your roommate group, but plan on living in a residence hall such as Liberty, is it guaranteed that your suite mates will be the same gender as you and your roommate?
Good question. So this would be, so if you're in a roommate group of 2, let's say, and you're wanting to select into Liberty, and then obviously the other side would have other folks in it. So we do set those based off of birth sex. So that generally would mean that yes, the same birth sex would be on kind of both sides of the bathroom. That's the way that our housing system is set up. If there's a specific question about housing dealing with birth sex versus gender, we're happy to answer those questions. Just give our office a call. But the way that the system is set up is that it does go off of birth sex. So if there's a roommate group on one side, it would be the same birth sex on the other side of the bathroom.
Can parents enter the building to help on move-in day? And also for students participating in Greek Rush, do you get an earlier move-in date?
Great question. So the first question is about parents and move-in, and certainly yes, we welcome parents and families to help during move-in. We will send more specific information. At this point, we do not anticipate any restrictions on move-in in terms of the number of people that help someone to move in. However, we all know based on the last couple of years that COVID can change very quickly. And so if that were to happen, then we would certainly message out. We will always have the opportunity for someone to be able to help you. But we do try to encourage within move-in, when you think about number of people, there's a lot of people at move-in already. And so we do encourage you to not bring every single member of your family. We welcome them and certainly want them to be able to come and see your space. But when you're actually actively moving in, having more people there is oftentimes not as helpful, because it just tends to be a lot of people kind of squished in. And so we do encourage you to try to keep that down to a smaller number. There was also a second part to that question. Can you remind me what that was, LaToya?
Second.
Maybe it was
for Rush. Yep.
Greek Rush.
Okay. For Rush. Yep.
Sure. So for sorority recruitment actually does not move in early. I know years ago they did, but sorority recruitment is actually going to start after, I think it starts the first day of classes. And so students would not be moving in early for sorority recruitment. There are some programs that allow for an early move-in. And again, when we send out information about move-in, we'll share that. So groups like Cougar Excursion that are going to be coming for a pre-orientation program, those students would be moving in early, but there's a specific date and time that all of those students would be moving in. And so again, we'll send out more information about that when we send out information about move-in, but for sorority recruitment, you would not be moving in early since that does not actually start until classes start.
If I'm in a 4-person roommate group, but I am the only one who's in honors college, will I be the group leader?
Good question. So not necessarily. So whoever is the group leader, basically, if you are an honors, if you're one honor student, and I assume in this case that you're probably wanting to select Barry, since you're asking that question, then whoever the roommate group leader is going to be able to select specifically into that, is going to be able to select into Barry. It doesn't necessarily have to be the honors person. So it's whoever was the designated group leader. If you want it to be a different person, again, as we said, you're welcome to let us know that you'd like to change the roommate group leader. And we're happy to do that before by June 1st.
Okay. Do the floor plans during room selection show where each specific bed is in the room? Like, are they labeled something similar to bed 1 and bed 2? So I can assign myself bed 1 and my roommate bed 2.
Good question. So the floor plan is going to show, let's say that we're thinking about a room in Barry, a two bedroom suite. What that's going to look like in the floor plan is it's going to show bedroom A and bedroom B. And when you look at the picture, you're going to see 2 beds in each one. And in Barry, it's, all of the rooms are set up the same. So as you walk in, there's a bed on the right and there's a bed on the left. We do not designate which bed is bed 1 and which bed is bed 2. So In the case that, let's say I'm, selecting a space and I really want to be able to sleep on the right side of the room, it's okay if I'm bed 1 in that situation, and it's okay also if I'm bed 2. We do not designate within a bedroom who gets the bed on the right or the left or the north facing wall or the south facing wall or any of that. That's up to you and your roommate to figure out. The floor plans will show the furniture in the space. Now, I will say that obviously we do our best to make sure that the rooms match the floor plans as much as we can within furniture, but sometimes a piece of furniture might get moved slightly. So when you come for move-in, but all of our furniture can be moved around within the suite, with the exception of Rutledge. That building, the furniture in the bedrooms is all built in, so it's not able to specifically be moved. But if you have questions as you're looking at floor plans and you don't understand, please certainly give our office a call.
Next question. I am attending the last orientation session. It is my understanding that I will move in on August 17th prior to orientation. Will a specific time be assigned during the day?
Yes. So for students that are participating in that last orientation session that want to move in early, you're not required to, but if you want to move in on that date, we will be providing a specific date range or a specific time range for that. Generally speaking, those times are in the late afternoon to early evening. So we don't know those exact times yet, but if you're for planning purposes, I would plan on something around the 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock time frame for move-in. And again, you will still be able to select a time, but it will all be kind of within that general time frame.
Which residence hall is the farthest away from the main hub of campus?
Good question. So if we're looking and thinking that the cistern yard, which everybody's main hub of campus is going to look a little different. So if you're taking a lot of classes, let's say in the education building, your hub of campus might look a little bit different than someone that, maybe taking more science and math classes. So, but if we're imagining that the cistern yard is the center of campus, the residence halls that sit kind of furthest away from the cistern yard are going to be 1, 10, and 20 Warren, as well as on the other side, McConnell Residence Hall. Now, I will say this, if you haven't been on campus, our campus is very walkable. For any of you that may have visited a much larger campus where, people have to drive from place to place or there's a shuttle or things like that, those are a lot larger campus. One really great part of the College of Charleston is that it is such a walkable area. And so really there is not a long distance for anyone. I think my guess, and there may be someone else on the call that has slightly more information, but I'm guessing that the walk from Cistern Yard down to something like Warren Place is probably going to be an 8-minute walk generally. I'm
jumping in, Megan. I've been over here all squirrely trying to pull up this map. And I can tell you, let me get it live. And then I can say that pretty much from one end of the campus to the other, it's 15 minutes max, and that's at a slow shade walking pace. So let me try to get this screen up here, but keep on talking.
Excellent. Well, that's helpful, and thank you, Meredith, for doing that. And I know that probably one of the questions too, as you start to think about that, is like, can I bring a bike, something like that? So bikes are certainly welcome. I do encourage you, if you are not a current bike rider a lot, like you have a bike and I definitely want to bring it because I ride a bike a lot, to wait until you're here on campus. We do have every year student government puts on a bike auction, and they sell basically bikes that are basically refurbished bikes back to students. And it's a really good opportunity to get, number one, a really affordable bike, but all of the proceeds go directly to student government back into programming funds. So it's a really good thing, but it also lets you see, okay, maybe I thought initially maybe I'd ride my bike a lot, but now that I'm here and I've been here a week, I haven't really thought I would really like a bike. And so it's a really good opportunity. And I definitely encourage you, unless you're one that's like, I definitely know I'm going to ride my bike all the time, to wait for that bike auction. So it looks like, Meredith, you have that pulled up on the screen. Do you want to talk through really quickly what that shows?
Sure. So basically, I'm going to zoom in real quick. So first off, this is on our residence halls page from the campus housing website. And that is where Megan has been talking about seeing the list of all the residence halls and then clicking through to see the amenities. So this is on there as well. The very center of campus, the cistern yard, that nice little oval in the middle, is very helpful for you to navigate. It helps me with my sense of direction. The very topmost is Warren Place, those locations there. I can tell you that I am right around number 3, and I can walk all the way down to number 10 in 10 minutes. And so obviously there are different mobility concerns some people have, and so that's going to be a little bit different, but that is kind of the distance for a walking pace. And McConnell Hall is the one you see down here at the southernmost point, and Warren up top once again.
And just to give you a sense too of some kind of cool things about 1, 10, and 20 Warren, since we're opening up 1 Warren and 20 Warren this year for first year students, that is going to have a huge majority of students that are going to live down there. So there's going to be about 500 first year students that live right there. So it's going to be a really awesome community. So I know people are like, oh, it's such a far walk, which it really isn't. But just think it's going to be a really awesome community over there because you're going to have so many other first year students around you. And on the opposite side of campus, when we think about McConnell, also not very far away. But as you think about that, we're actually doing a full refresh of McConnell this summer. So if you looked at the pictures of things in McConnell and you think, "Ooh, that floor in there doesn't look great," or the furniture in the living room, I wish that it was different. Great news. It is all going to look a little bit different when you come in the fall because we're doing a full refresh there. So just 2 things to think about for the spaces that are furthest away from campus, from main center of campus. Each of them have their own unique, pretty cool experience that you'll have there this fall.
Okay. Do all the residence halls have elevators?
Good question. So a couple of our residence halls do not have elevators, and that's based on the age of them. And so Craig Residence Hall does not have an elevator, and neither does Kelly House. And I know that some of you, if you looked at that email that we sent out on May 18th, you may have seen that Kelly House is a potential option. I can confirm that we are going to have spaces in Kelly open for first year students this fall. And so when we send out more information about room selection, you'll be able to see those specific spaces. But Kelly House is the other one that doesn't have an elevator. If you want to think about it in a positive way, just think you won't have to go to the gym because when you come home, you can just, you'll have great legs, super strong from taking those stairs.
Great. And if you want to consider changing rooms during the room selection process after you've already selected, will clicking on that button erase what you previously selected?
Good question. So if you click on the change room button, it does not remove you from the room that you selected until you click confirm at the end. And that's correct, right? LaToya, I know that you're the expert on this.
Correct. That is correct.
Perfect. Yeah. So you can look at another space and not pull yourself out of the first space. However, once you click that confirm for at the end of that change room selection, you are going to be assigned to that new space. And so therefore you're not going to be able to you're not going to probably get back into your other space because that immediately goes back into the choices for people, and folks will most likely select that immediately.
And the last question, when it is our time to choose housing, will it be filtered to only see what is left to choose from? Good
question. So you will only see what is left to choose. What you will also get is when we start to do kind of the regular room selection process, the day before your room selection, I should say the evening before your time to select, we will send out an updated list of rooms. So before room selection, you're going to get a more detailed list. So we've kind of given you a general sense of how many, let's say, suites in Barry hold 4 people, right? How many of those do we have? But what you're going to get right before you select is a full list of all of the rooms that hold 4 people in Barry and every other place, right? So we're going to send that out initially. So everyone will get that when we send out that information that everyone will get about room selection. We'll send that out so everyone can see the full list. But then for each person, so let's say that you're on the 3rd day of room selection, you would get an updated version of that list. So you can see, okay, I really wanted let's say a 3-bedroom space in Barry. Oh, I see that all of those have been taken. So I'm going to need to then select a space, let's say down in McConnell or 10 Warren or things like that.
And last question about orientation housing. If my roommate and I are both staying one night in a residence hall for the same orientation, how do I request to room with them?
Sure. So many of you have signed up to stay in Liberty during your stay in orientation, and we're so excited to have you. For those of you who haven't, please know that during those mandatory sessions for orientation that are happening in June and July, we welcome you to come and stay on campus. It's a really great opportunity to find out what it's like and to have that opportunity. There's a lot of really great programming happening that night. So the way that process works, though, is that students sign up and we are immediately going through and assigning people into bed spaces. And so unfortunately, we're not able to take room selection or roommate requests for that. Honestly, it's just too much of a logistical part for us to be able to manage as we're turning rooms really, really quickly. And so the great part about that, though, is that you'll get to meet somebody new. And so it is only one night. I know that folks want to be able to have that full experience of what it's going to be like to share a space with their roommate, but we purposely make it so that nobody can select a specific person within that, since it is really just that one night. And I know that you all are probably going to be up super late that night with all of the amazing programming that's going on. So if you haven't signed up, definitely do that. Please note that you won't be able to sign up for orientation housing until you've gotten a confirmation about the orientation session that you signed up for. So until you sign up for the actual orientation session itself, you won't be able to access into our system to sign up for the orientation housing. And certainly if you have any questions about that, feel free to reach out to our office. Any last minute questions that came in, LaToya?
No, ma'am.
No, and Megan, I'm going to sneak in one more time. I just want to do one more quick little route through the website because I feel like we work really hard to put a lot of information there, and it is a really good resource for everyone as y'all are looking through things. So this is the campus housing site, so housing.cofc.edu. The residence halls page starts, you can see the top left, residence halls, all the halls are listed here. Some people jump straight to them to see what they are, but scroll down. A lot of times we do get questions about where our rates are. They kind of hide at the bottom of the page, especially if you're on your cell phone. So they are all here. And then these are the links that Megan has been talking about for the different halls and their amenities. And so, for instance, if you click on Liberty, you'll go to the Liberty Street page and you can see 360 tours, floor plans, and then the room amenities and dimensions that Megan was talking about. So just wanted to highlight that section. It does kind of get hidden when you're looking on your cell phone. And so take a look, dig through it, and email or call us if you have any questions.
Awesome.
And I'm done.
Thank you, Meredith. And thank you so much to LaToya for reading all those questions. We very much look forward to you participating in the room selection process. Please know that there is more information coming out via email, but if at any point you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to our office. We look forward to welcoming you either this summer while you're here for orientation, or certainly for everyone in the fall. And we hope that you have a really great summer. And for those of you who are participating or have already participated in graduation or participating soon, we wish you very much congratulations on that major accomplishment. We can't wait until you become a Cougar this fall. Thanks so much, everybody.